Welcome back to Dubbzi Bricks for episode 3 of building the TANTIVE in Lego. And I want to start off by saying a massive thank you to a Truthful1110 who kindly pointed out that I've got this wrong already. And the corridor goes to the left, not the right. And I did initially think it was to the left. However, I watched A New Hope, or thought I did, and I saw a corridor going to the right, so I changed it. However, that is this scene here, as you'll see on screen now, which isn't the opening scene. In the opening scene, they clearly go to the left. So a big thank you for pointing that out, because I do want this to be accurate, and I'm glad somebody's mentioned it now, rather than several updates down the line when it would have been a lot more work. So the first thing I'm going to concentrate on doing in this update is getting this corrected. Luckily, the way that I'm building this, it isn't going to take me too long at all to get this all corrected. I have had a pick a brick order come in in the last few days, and that's going to enable me to do more work on this section here. And so it'd be nice to get a lot of that done if I can. And there are a couple of extra details I want to be adding to this section, so I am going to just carry on experimenting just a little bit more before I get the final look of that section all done. And one other thing that would be nice to do is to start getting some support coming up from this bottom section here to help take the weight of the docking bays that are on the side of the ship here. Now, the main thing that I want to be concentrating on this update is how I'm going to get the cylinder shape around the corridors. I want to have it so I can remove the top section off of here. So it is going to be quite a challenge, but yeah, fingers crossed we will come up with something that works and looks good. And here we have the revised corridor section. Now, when the stormtroopers enter the TANTIVE, they go down the corridor and correctly turn left and not right, as I stupidly did the first time around. Still can't believe I made such a stupid error, especially after I'd looked at some footage as well. But yeah, pay more attention in the future. Anyway, here it is, the revised corridor all in place. And I have made a couple of amendments to this. I do need to find some more ingots out to go down there. But I've put some bricks protruding from the walls now, and that's going to enable me to attach the curved sides to the actual build. And also I've tidied this section up here as well, so there's not as much mixed match of colours on there. Try to keep it as uniformed as possible, as this may potentially be exposed depending on how the removable section is on the top of that. Now, with these corridor sets, I think I'm going to have to get probably 3 or 4 more of them, just so I can continue to do the corridors down the far end. I've still got to build one to go all the way along here, which will be removable as well. But yeah, it's certainly going to be very part intensive, this build. And I am finding that the parts you get in this set are so good. So rather than me just order ingots off of Bricklink or the slopes, it's a lot better to get the packs. I've just found a load of the 45-degree slopes in this set, and I need those for my Gotham mock. So again, it is proving to be very useful for the parts that I'm getting from the set. Anyway, let's start prototyping how we're going to get the circular section around the corridor. And here is a circle that can go nicely around the corridor. Size-wise, it's going to work out perfectly. The only problem I'm having with this is this gap here. It's more than one plate. I have tried building up on it to fill the gaps, but then it made them about 6 studs wide, and then it looks more like a multi-sided shape as opposed to a circle or a cylinder. So I do need to find a solution to it. Now, there are the small ones which are 2 studs wide, and I've also got them in plate form as well. So again, what I could be doing is making each of these, instead of the studs exposed being 4 studs, I could go down to 3. So that is an option. However, it's whether or not that shrinks the circle too much, as obviously you have got set places in which these can lock into place. And the locking mechanism is really good because it keeps the shape really well on here. It's not moving, so that is positive. The other good thing with using this as a technique is if I do stick to having the 4 studs, I could use a 2 long one on this part here and here, and so that goes like so, and then I'd have the opposite on the bottom. It's then in 2 halves, so I could actually fix the bottom half to the corridor section, and the top half can just rest on top. So that does work out really well. So I am hoping I can find a solution with this piece. As I mentioned, the lock-in part of the hinge piece is really strong, and it is looking like it's going to work well. But as you can see, I've just placed a tile on here, and you've still got a little bit of a gap there. But I mean, I could potentially, I don't know whether a door rail piece will fit in there, but then you can have a ridge, which I don't particularly want to have if I can help it. But we'll carry on experimenting and see what we can come up with. And I've started experimenting using the plates and getting those gaps down to the 3 studs as mentioned. However, it's way too small to go around the corridor section. So I am going to have to find a solution with this particular piece here, which I don't mind. As I said, using a 2x here is going to make it perfect for going around the corridor. The size is spot on there, so it's just a case of finding a way of filling the gaps there. But these are the sort of challenges which do make Lego building so much fun. And the other thing as well is the only place I really got the problem are where the actual connection points are on here. In between there, it's a lot easier to build, and with these particular pieces I'm only going to be having to have them on each end, so it's not like I've got to have them every 6 studs like I've got on this mock-up here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn my attentions back to the corridor section here. Due to the recent order that I had come through from lego.com, I can do a little bit more work on that, and then I'm going to look at the support structure for this. And here we have a little bit more progress on the lower corridor section of the mock, and I'm so much happier with the design of this section just down here. I think the lines look a lot better. It's a lot more in keeping to the scale that I'm looking for as well. It's a little bit smaller, which is nice. The pipes here, they have proved a little bit of a problem. Due to this one here, it's set back a little bit further than the one at the bottom there. It means I've got to have those cylinders pushed back. Ideally, I'd have them forward by a stud. However, it's not possible to do so with the cylinders hanging down being directly above the ones at the bottom. So unless I can find another solution to that, that's how that's going to be for the time being. Now with the corridor section here, I'm having a little bit of a problem with it, and that's the location on the vessel. Now originally it was going to be going underneath this corridor section just here. However, it should be located along the side of it, and the problem I'm having is if I put it below it, nothing's going to work out right location wise in the ship. It's in the wrong place on the vessel to start with. Although it would be good to be able to see both corridors when you remove the side from there, I do think that I need to try and find a way to put it in its correct place within the ship. The other problem is if I have it below it, then when it comes to the escape pods, that's not going to line up either. And yeah, it's just going to cause all kinds of problems. So I need to try and find the solution right now as to how I fit it all on the top section. This is 16 studs in width at the moment. Now, if I put 16 studs in there, we're going to be coming out to around about here, which means I've only got that much of the corridor. The actual fuselage is going to be too big because it's going to be about 40 studs, if not more, probably actually about 50 studs in width. So yeah, there's a lot I need to try and work out. One thing I could potentially do is the center part of the ship here. I could move that corridor over to the left hand side so it's not central like it should be, and then this one can fit in on the side there. So it's not going to be screen accurate obviously, because I'd imagine you would have another one of these corridors on the opposite side. So yeah, I just need to work out how I'm going to go about doing this. This wall here, I could lose that stud's worth of bricks because it could be integrated into this upright here. It will take a fair bit of work in to get it all in there, but I'm sure that there will be a way of doing it. I could reduce the corridor width by 2 studs. However, I don't really want to do that, as I thought it'd be quite cool when set up to have a stormtrooper stood either side of the corridor there and then Vader walking through. And if I do shrink it, then I'm not going to be able to do so. And I don't particularly want to have this corridor a different width than this one just here. So I could have shrunk that one, but not that one. So yeah, lots of decisions I need to make in regards to this and try and work out how I go about doing so. But this problem has sort of like had a knock-on effect on everything. If I am putting this by the side of that corridor, then the cylinder that's going to be going around this corridor here is going to be higher up. At the moment it was going to be down, so the cylinder was going to be like so. So it was the top semicircle was going to be covering the top section, and the bottom half would have been covering the equivalent of this. So yeah, there's lots of things I need to work out with this entire structure and this build. But yeah, the joys of making a large scale vessel for the very first time. It's very challenging, very head scratching, but yeah, loving every second of it. Anyway, let's carry on thinking about how we're going to get around this problem, and I'll check back in once I've had a think about it. And this is proving to be the most technical challenge, a head-scratching challenge, should I say, that I've ever had with mock building. And yeah, trying to work out the best solution for the size issues I've got here is proving to be really, really tough. Something has got to give visually wise, and yeah, just need to work out what that is going to be. I have decided I'm not going to have this corridor below it. I don't feel like it's going to look right. I'm not happy with having it below there, is one of the main things as well. So I am going to be putting it to the side. However, I can't put one either side of this corridor. If I were to do that, I've worked the calculations out, and this ship would be over 17.5 foot long. Now, I can't afford to build a ship that big, as much as I would love to do so. Yeah, I just can't afford to build one that big. So I'm going to have to scale it down. Now, I think it is going to be a case of just having 2 corridors. So where I've got doors here, they're not actually going to be leading anywhere. It'll just be the ones this side. So I have 2 corridors. So you go in the boarding hatch, come down here, and then this is the section which leads to the escape pods, and where Leia hands the plans over to R2-D2 and things like that. Now, if I do that, then obviously I'm going to be knocking a third off of the length. So we're probably going to be down to 12 foot in length on the vehicle, which again, that's the size of a snooker table, which is just insane to think about. But I think that unless I can scale it down anymore, that's what we're looking at now, which is just, yeah, it's ridiculous to think we're going to be 3.6 to 4 meters in length on this ship, which is, again, a lot bigger than I really want to be doing. And one of the reasons being is I want to display this in my Lego room, and where that pile of rubbish is, or Lego is down the end there, I want to have it mounted on the wall up there. But again, it's not going to fit on there at this rate. So that, again, is another negative to the problems that I'm faced with here. Now, every sort of like stud that I can lose on the width of this, that does bring the length of the vessel down considerably. So if I do reduce the width of this corridor here by a couple of studs, then again, there's 20 or 30 studs off of the length of the vehicle. Just by integrating this wall into that one, it knocks a stud off. So yeah, all of these sort of things, if I can do that somehow, then obviously I will be doing that. So yeah, what I think I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a new Technic frame up just for this section just here. I'm going to peel these walls off very carefully because I don't want to rebuild them. Put them on the new section, start integrating that onto the side of it. Then we'll have our new width. I'm going to see how compact I can get it, and then we'll go from there. If I have to, I will shrink the corridor by 2 studs, not necessarily on this section, but there. I didn't particularly want to have it at 2 different widths, but again, when you're looking down on it, I don't think you're really going to think, oh, that corridor's narrower than that one. The only other option I've got is on the vessel is this particular section just here. I make it a little bit wider, not by a great deal, it'll only be by a few studs, than what the section there is. So again, that might be a good compromise. I'm not going to have to worry once I get to here, because you've got plenty of bodywork to play with, and down here it's not going to be an issue at all. So that is another good way that I can lose some of the size, but without necessarily sacrificing the overall aesthetic of the build. And this really has been fun and games trying to get the width of this corridor correct. I started off by using just art plates on it. I had it too wide, and I thought that was about the right size. However, when I was putting things together, I thought, oh, I can shave a stud off here, and then another one and another one. And then I looked at the corridor, and I've just peeled it off and brought it over by 2 studs. So now I believe this is the width of the corridor that you see in the TANTIVE hallway set. And I do think it's actually wide enough. So I am going to be going for the gap, that width across on there. So that has enabled me to remove the art plates on this section and just build a Technic frame, which is 12 studs wide. So the total width of this now is 28 studs. So it's not very far off of what I need it to be. By the time I've put the curves on there as well, that's probably going to add another 6 studs to it possibly, but all in all I think we're in the low 30s for the corridor section. So what I'm going to do now is build the wall back up on this side. They have peeled off nicely, so all I have to do, I'll put the curved slopes on the very bottom, and then the other parts will rest on there. The wall that goes along here, I do need to rebuild, as on the back of it, I need to have snot bricks so that I can build the details for the corridor on this section on the reverse. So yeah, it's a little bit of a rework on there, but at least I've now managed to condense this down to a size that I think I'm happy with. And although it's not screen accurate, the corridor should be more central, not over to one side of the vessel. I am much happier to actually have these details in the build rather than not, basically. So anyway, let's carry on putting all of this back together. With the way that I'm now building this, I need to integrate, as I mentioned, this section here into the back of this wall here. So for the time being, until I can find out or resource more of these curved slope pieces, I'm actually taking them from this section here. I haven't destroyed the parts that go on top of it, as the majority of this is going to be using snot bricks and things like that. So I just want to make sure that I've got the structural side of this all correct, and then I can start working out what parts I actually need to get in. I was about to order these slopes here and the inverted slopes, so at least by doing this now, I will be able to get all of the parts ordered in all at the same time. Anyway, let's carry on building this up, and once I've built a little bit more of it up, I'll check back in and show you how it's coming along. And just checking in with an update here, and this is starting to feel a lot better as a build. Really pleased with how this section here is coming along. Once I've got all the pieces in that I need, it's going to be a lot easier to carry on building this. Now with this section, there are so many parts I need to order just to get this done, and I need to work out the other details that go along, because it's not all canisters obviously down there. Now with this corner section here, I am amending it very slightly. I put some cheese wedges up against there, and that's made a nice connection, so it's a lot tidier than I had it before. So I'm just going to carry on building along here, see how much we can get done with the parts that we have got available before I start tackling the cylinder that's going to be going around. the corridor section. Now the corridor is a lot longer now than it previously was, so that's good as well. It's a lot more in keeping with what I was originally hoping for. I just hope that I've got to make the vessel that much bigger as a result of it. Now there is going to be a door frame in this section just here, and I will put the printed brick in here, and I'll also put another one there so they're back to back. I want it so the door is closed, but I want to be able to see the details on either side. But there are so many pieces, as I mentioned, that are holding me up. These black arches, that's going to be a big problem. I need to get a lot of those in, the inverted and the normal. So yeah, just carry on doing what we're doing and see how much more we can get done. I should be able to work regardless on the circular part that's going to be coming around the corridor, and that's one thing I do really want to make a start on, just so I can check that the technique that I'm going to be using is going to work. But anyway, let's get back to building, and I'll check back in once we've made a little bit more progress. And now the fun and games really begin. I've gone as far as I can go with the pieces I've got for the corridor section and this part just here. So my list of pieces I need to order in is getting bigger and bigger, and I will get an order of that in the next day or two, as it will be nice to get them here before Christmas. So come January, I can just crack on with this section just here. Now what I'm going to be doing now is flipping the build upside down or on its side, and then I'm going to build a structure of probably about 6 bricks, 7 bricks maybe on the bottom. It's going to be a thinner channel, and it's going to connect it all together. And I also need to put plenty of support for this so that it can help take the weight of the corridor section just there. So the idea is to get this suspended or raised off the ground so I can start building the cylinder that goes around this docking bay. So I think once I've got that on there, it's just going to look so much better, and it's just going to give me a much better idea of techniques I'm going to be using and how it's all going to come together. I have the ideas I've got in my head actually going to work? Who knows? But yeah, really looking forward to the next stage of the build. So without further ado, let's flip it upside down and let's get building. And here is the bottom of the TANTIVE 4. And I've connected the Technic bricks, as you can see, to these 16 by 16 plates. I've then got 2 plates and 5 bricks before it comes to a next Technic brick. And then that's enabled me to put these Technic beams in here, which are 9 long. And that's helping to keep those two all together. So it's compressing these bricks there. So hopefully that's going to make that nice and strong. Now I haven't got many of these 9 long beams, so I am going to need to get a few more of those in. The more I've got on there, the stronger it's going to be. Now I don't think that this is still going to be high enough off the ground to work around the corridor section, so I might just have to balance it on something for the time being. But yeah, happy that that's all coming together nicely. It does seem to be attached really well due to the Technic structure I've put here, where I've used a lot of these pieces connected to some 16 long beams. There are a lot of studs connecting this to the secondary frame there. So anyway, let's flip it back upside down, up the correct way now, and start working on the cylinder that's going to go around the corridor. And I've had to put temporary support on the side there, as this side is obviously a lot heavier than the other side, as there's no corridor on there at the moment. And yeah, it just wants to topple over, so that's stopping that from happening. We've now built the support struts coming out of the side of the tunnel section, or the corridor section, sorry, and they're actually built into the wall. I've then put bricks on the bottom here as well, which go underneath, and there's some plates under there that are quite big as well. Again, that's just to stop them from coming down. And now I can attach the semicircle that's going on the bottom to that, and then that should attach that nicely. I've done grey on the end here. You're not going to see any of this multicolour filler brick or filler plate once I've got it all finished, so I'll just make the end section look nice and tidy. But what we need to do now is attach the corridor section, or the surrounding for the corridor section, to that. And I've knocked this up here, so this is a larger version of what we did earlier. There's only the hinge pieces on each end, and it probably could do with an extra set in the middle. However, I don't know how many of these I'm going to have available to me, and they are quite an expensive piece. But yeah, we'll see how well it goes together, and if I need to put some more in, then so be it. I'll just purchase some more. And that's the bottom half all attached to the ship, and it's really strong, so really happy with how that's come together. Just need to work out, as I mentioned previously, how I'm going to finish the look of this off on there. But it's nice to have the skeleton, should we say, on there already. And what I've done here, I've tiled this part off here, so I'm just going to replicate this bottom section, and then that will just rest on top of that. And then I will find a way of connecting it just by a couple of points on there, just a couple of studs just to keep it all in place. Or I may very well just have it so you peel one tile off on the end or each end, and then that will release the top section. I'm going to make this look a lot tidier along here, so I might put some greeblin or something like that, so when you're looking at it at a convention or anything like that, you can see the nice tidy look. You don't see a horrible brick and filler plate on there. But yeah, really pleased with the way that this is all coming together. It's so nice to see a bit of shape going into the build, and also it gives a better idea of the size of the build as well, seeing the semicircle around this tunnel. And here is the top section on the corridor, and this just comes off nice and simple, so it's going to be very easy to display this in both fully made up version or exposing the corridors. Now what I will do is put a roof section on that part just there. There is going to be a build coming off of the top, and I'll have a removable section on here as well, so when you're viewing the model convention, for example, you'll be able to peer into the inside of the ship from this angle just here or down to there. What I intend on doing is having the fuselage actually attached to the ship up to probably where the Technic beam is on there. Now the one problem that I am going to have is the size of the fuselage. The circumference of it here is going to be bigger than this by quite a bit, I think. But I say quite a bit, probably about 6 or 7 bricks, maybe 6 or 7 studs, which is a lot more than I would like. However, I do still want to do some work on this, so this might end up coming up by a couple more bricks, and then once the difference is down to just 4 bricks, then, or 4 studs, then I don't think it's going to be as noticeable. But yeah, I'm really glad that I've made the decision to put this corridor side by side, although it has meant that the TANTIVE has grown yet again. I do think overall it is going to look a lot better having it this way around. I think if I had the corridor down there, it would have been very difficult to see in it, whereas up here at least you can have all the light coming down on it, and it's a lot more screen accurate as well. Yeah, really pleased with the amount of progress managed to get done with the limited time that I've had in December. So the order has been placed for the parts to get the corridor section continued, and as many pieces as I think I'm going to need for this build for the next month or so. Anyway, I'd like to wish everybody a happy new year. Hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please remember to give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content on the channel. And if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building the TANTIVE in Lego, if you can share the channel with them, it'd be much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for popping on by, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.